don't know who to trust. Double up the rum, Lord, help me find your love. Duffels in the trunk, soon enough we'll need a truck. Up, up, I'm like Russell going up.
I personally think that you should keep at least one vice. It's very important. A lot of people, when they have a self-destructive habit, it's common that they try to just push through it through willpower and just try to resist it as much as possible. That can work temporarily. Sometimes it's effective short term, but the problem is that you're basically placing this thing above you. Like, it has power over you. It's like, oh my God, there's this dragon that I have to face, but I'm gonna continue to hide from the dragon instead of befriending it, if that makes sense. You're putting too much power in this vice, in this thing, and it has control of you as a consequence. It's really just how you mentally associate with it. Like, a lot of people, they're like, oh, I don't want to drink anymore because everyone's telling me not to. It's like, okay, first of all, if you have a drinking problem, then yes, this is an issue that you need to tackle. And obviously, I can't tell you how that's done. I'm not a professional and I don't know your circumstance. However, if you genuinely just do it in moderation and you still have a lot of other things in life that are going well and you really don't see much of a problem with it, like, don't put all this pressure on yourself to be like, oh, I have to quit this because everyone else is telling me to. It's like, bro, it's not that deep. Like, evaluate your relationship with it. Me personally, I just have an addictive personality. That's just the person I am. I indulged in a lot of detrimental vices and self-destructive habits. And it wasn't until I basically discovered rock bottom where I just cold turkeyed it. Like I said, this is it. Like, this is no longer serving me. I don't see the point of it, so I just stopped. So as a result, I quit alcohol. I haven't drank for about 2 years. I quit going out partying. There's nothing wrong with an occasional party. I think it's just a little bit delicate because you can get off the rails, but I stopped that. I eat healthy for the most part. I also have gotten better at saving my money and disciplining. So there's a lot of vices that I've essentially conquered. But there's some phases throughout these couple years while I was conquering my habits where I genuinely felt I felt like a shell of a person. But you essentially have 3 parts of your brain. I believe it's the id, the conscious, and the ego. I could be wrong. But what I do know is one of those things is, I believe, the id, which is obviously the primal aspect of your brain. We call it the lizard brain. You might have other terms for it. However, these things, it's just the basic stuff like food, sleep, water, and I believe intimacy is in there too. But it's essentially your brain, it's your primitive brain. It's trying to satiate these things for you. However, if you have no outlet to channel this primitive part of your brain, I think that it's hopping into the territory of being repressed. Now you're repressing yourself, and repression is not talked about that often, because even if you do have a lot of self-control over yourself, if you don't, it's just gonna come out like a dam, like the dam broke type of thing. It's gonna come out just like boom. That's why you see, people who perhaps they were raised in very strict households, hyper-religious, no sexual activity before marriage type of thing, and a lot of them just wild out when they get a bit older, because they're repressed. Now, I'm not saying you have to wild out, but you have to really keep at least one vice, man. Like, first of all, if you have a lot of your habits dealt with, you have the luxury of keeping one vice. For me personally, I haven't done it often recently. However, cigars. Cigars are my forte. I just like the nicotine rush. I like how it makes me feel. It makes me still. It makes me grounded in the present moment. because my brain is always on hamster wheels. But the thing is that for you guys, it may be something else. Sometimes you might enjoy a glass of bourbon every couple weeks or so. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If it's not causing you any destruction in other areas of your life, then it's fine. However, I truly believe that once you reach a point where you should keep one vice, you want to ensure that your self-awareness is so heightened to the point where you constantly evaluate how this thing makes you feel, if it's just cope, if it's actually not so conducive for you, but you're just lying to yourself. But I truly believe as you become more, as you impose more control over yourself and rid a lot of your vices, I believe you're naturally going to develop a lot of that self-awareness to guide you through these thought patterns and through these actions. But again, just to harness everything together, having one vice is crucial. It's so crucial. It's just, have you guys not felt that before where you just like stopped everything, you just became a monk? I think we all have phases, but I think it's genuinely just, it's cope. It's cringy and it's cope because it's like, you're pushing away the human element to you. At the end of the day, we're human. Like, you can't suppress these desires. You have to channel them. A lot of times you should channel it through productive things and positive outlets. Like, for example, working out, taking up a martial art. Even if you want to get into the more artistic side, you can channel a lot of your pent up sexual energy, for example, into creating art. It's done a lot for me. Now, obviously it gets tough if you're constantly transmuting your urges, not just sexual, but a bunch of other things. However, you have to embrace both sides to it, doing it through healthy outlets, but also picking one vice that is not detrimental for you and just moderating it. Like, I'm not saying you should do heroin or crack. Like, that objectively can be fatal. But for example, something like gambling to a minor extent, or going to the casino, or I don't know, even if you want to have a friends with benefits once in a while, or you want to have a shot of Negroni, or you want to smoke a cigar, or even weed. But the point is that, guys, there's nothing wrong with keeping it. However, I believe you have to earn that luxury. If you are still a victim to your desires, or I don't want to say victim, but a slave to your desires, and it's just getting to the point where it's actually sabotaging a lot of other facets in your life, you haven't earned that luxury yet. But you need to get to a point where you've developed such self-discipline on yourself to the point where you can actually afford to keep a vice, and you should. Because if you go too much on one side, you're not balancing yourself out. It can actually harm you. If you eat clean all the time, guys, like, part of the human experience and the life experience is to enjoy all aspects. And part of that is to sometimes let yourself go and see what happens, to embrace your natural primitive state. When I started to puff the ganja when I was around 18, 19, even 20, when I was growing into a young man, when I was finally into the real world and I realized how disgusting it's going to be, how nasty it's going to be as a young man, I started getting paranoid whenever I would smoke. I'd be like, I would just be a wreck. I would be a mental wreck. That voice in my head that was just paranoid, it would be amplified to 1,000. My thoughts were so loud. I realized that I'm essentially a nobody for the first time in my life. Because when I was 15, when I was doing it and skipping school and with my friends and eating desserts and going to McDonald's and, having 5 Big Macs in one sitting, and that's not even a lie, that's not an exaggeration. Sometimes I would literally go for that. I didn't care because I was a 15-year-old kid who just didn't care. Like, my hormones are running to the fullest extent. Obviously, when you're a teenager, you don't think long term. But as I got older, this paranoia just kept creeping on me. And it's like, I stopped when I was like 19, 20, maybe a bit of 21. Or maybe I just did it really occasionally. But I built my first business, which is window cleaning, when I was 21, and I started becoming financially stable at 21. And now at 22, I have a lot of stuff going for me. I've built myself. I've went through that dirt period. I've proven to myself that I'm competent. And so when I was in Thailand last month, because marijuana was legalized there, they switched it up a couple weeks ago, but I still went to the store and bought some. And I would smoke a lot in Thailand, and I noticed that paranoid voice was no longer there. It was no longer there because I've finally embraced my real self. I proven to myself who I really am through those hardships. And so what I found interesting was that when I would smoke and I would be while I was high, I noticed that there were three voices in myself: the ego, my real voice, and, just voices, that aren't real, like trauma and things like that. And I noticed that when I would smoke, all the trauma and all the overthinking and all the ego thoughts were just gone. It was just me and my real voice, or my real thoughts. And for the first time, I actually became an observer. And I became so stoic, logical, and unemotional through the observer state that it kind of blew me away. Like, a lot of these self-limiting beliefs that my ego or my trauma voice may have circulated over and over through my daily life, even though I have a lot of stuff going for me, when I would smoke, my real voice would it would observe those thoughts and be like, oh, this is, the trauma voice talking. It's not real. Why am I allowing it to affect me? That's not really who I am. It's just delusional. It's not my friend. It's not a real voice. Logically, I'm good at this, I'm good at that. So that voice is really just, it's not real. It's a fallacy. So anyways, I kind of went off on a bit of a tangent, but that was just the interesting change that I've had with marijuana. So before I would have told you, don't do marijuana, blah, 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 even as one vice. But now I kind of switch it up. I think it's not too bad. As long as you've been through that gritty period where you've proven to yourself through brute willpower and brute force that you are capable and a competent man or woman. One thing I want to mention too is also sugar and sweets. Nothing wrong with that. It's very good once in a while. As I said, if you're going to the gym and you're staying healthy and disciplined with your body.